There is this very specific type of exhaustion that I feel like we just don't talk about enough.
So there's
It's that creeping, heavy feeling that hits you right around, I don't know, the 25th of the month.
yeah, the end of month panic.
Exactly. You're checking your banking app with like one eye closed, bracing yourself, doing these crazy mental gymnastics to figure out if you can safely buy groceries without, overdrafting before direct deposit hits.
Right, just holding your breath to check out.
Yes,
Okay.
it is the absolute soul-crushing grind of living paycheck to paycheck, and it's a cycle of financial instability that feels less like a season of life and more like a treadmill, but a treadmill that someone else locked on the absolute highest speed setting, and you are just trying not to fall off.
The psychological toll of that instability is just, well, it's immense. When you are caught in that cycle, your entire mental bandwidth is completely consumed by just surviving until next Friday.
Just getting to Friday.
Right. It's a state of chronic financial fight or flight. You aren't planning for the future because, frankly, the present requires all of your cognitive resources just to keep your head above water. It leaves people feeling totally paralyzed.
Paralyzed is really the perfect word for it. But today, we are pulling the plug on that treadmill. We are doing a deep dive into a synthesis of some incredibly focused materials.
Really practical stuff today.
Yeah, we have a comprehensive guide called the Strategic Roadmap to Financial Stability and a pretty intense video breakdown on creating a first budget. So the mission for today's deep dive is to take these strategies and use them to build a bridge.
A bridge out of the panic.
Exactly. We are talking about the actual practical transition from that exhausting financial anxiety to genuine, lasting financial freedom for you, the listener.
And that transition is entirely possible regardless of what your banking app looks like right now. I mean, the way out isn't about suddenly making $1 million.
As nice as that would be.
Sure, yeah. But it is really about fundamentally shifting how you interact with the money you already have.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because right out of the gate, the materials we're looking at today completely reframe the core concept of a budget.
You do, and it's a crucial shift.
I think a lot of people hear the word budget and they immediately picture handcuffs,
Oh, totally. Handcuffs and deprivation.
Right. They think of restriction, guilt, and like those color-coded spreadsheets that just exist to tell you that you are irresponsible and you can't have any fun ever again.
Just a digital scolding.
Yeah. But the approach here redefines a comprehensive personal budget as a strategic roadmap. It's framed as a tool that puts you in the driver's seat rather than, well, a punisher that keeps you locked in the trunk.
And that reframing is the necessary first step, because if you view a budget as a punishment, your brain is just naturally going to resist it. You'll avoid it at all costs.
Like avoiding the dentist.
Exactly. But a roadmap doesn't tell you that you can't travel. It simply illuminates the terrain so you can choose the best route to your destination.
I like that. Illuminating the terrain.
Right, because the ultimate goal isn't to lock down your life, but to unlock your financial agency. However, to read any map effectively, you have to know your exact starting coordinates.
Oh, the dreaded starting coordinates?
Yeah, you can't plot a course to a new destination if you are, lying to yourself about where you are currently standing.
Which is usually the most painful part of the entire process. Before we can build this roadmap, we have to pull the raw data.
The scary part.
Yeah, we need to know exactly what we're working with. The source material says the absolute first step is gathering all of your financial information.
All of it.
Every single source of income and every single monthly expense you have, every receipt, every digital transaction, every recurring charge, everything.
Without exception, you have to lay it all out on the table in front of you.
I look at it kind of like taking inventory in a commercial kitchen before you plan a new menu.
Okay, I can see that.
Like, you can't start creating recipes and turning on ovens until you have opened every single walk-in freezer and dry storage cupboard. You need to know exactly what ingredients you actually have, what has quietly expired in the back.
Which is usually a lot.
Right, and what you are entirely out of. But let me challenge this for a second, because this is right where people usually bail.
They do. They hit this wall and quit.
So why is there such a massive emphasis on getting all the granular data first? I mean, I roughly know I spend a few hundred on food. I know my salary. Why isn't a ballpark estimate good enough to just get started?
What's fascinating here is that estimation is the exact psychological trap that keeps people stuck in that paycheck-to-paycheck cycle.
Right, estimation is the trap.
Yeah. Human beings are notoriously terrible at estimating their own behavior, especially when it comes to money. We engage in something behavioral economists call mental accounting.
Okay, what does that look like in practice?
Well, we anchor our mental math to the large recurring painful numbers, like a $1,500 rent check or a massive car payment.
Right, because those hurt.
Exactly, because those hurt. We remember them vividly. But we completely ignore the steady drip of small daily purchases because our brains just aren't wired to track cumulative small losses.
Ah, so like the $5 coffees, the random impulse buys at the pharmacy, the digital movie rentals on a Tuesday night.
The death by a thousand cuts.
Wow, yeah.
If you build your budget on estimated numbers, you are building a strategic roadmap on fictional geography.
You're drawing a map of a place that doesn't exist.
Exactly. You will inevitably crash because you haven't accounted for the actual terrain. Creating this roadmap forces you to track your actual income and expenses, not your aspirational ones. You have to pull the unvarnished bank statements and just confront reality.
But confronting that reality can be deeply triggering. I mean, looking at a giant, unfiltered list of transactions can feel incredibly overwhelming for anyone.
It's confronting all your past choices at once.
Yeah. It's just a mountain of raw data that usually comes with a heavy dose of shame about past purchases. So once you have that terrifying pile of numbers on the table, how do you handle it without immediately closing the laptop and just walking away?
You triage.
Triage. Okay.
You cannot process a mountain of raw data all at once. You have to tame it by categorizing it. Separating the signal from the noise so that the numbers actually become useful to you.
Triage makes sense. And the methodology in the guides here explicitly divides all these costs into two very distinct buckets, right? Fixed expenses and variable expenses.
Yes, those are the two pillars.
So fixed expenses are things like rent, insurance, and utilities. Variable expenses are things like groceries, dining out, and entertainment.
That categorization is the foundational architecture of everything that follows in the roadmap. It separates what you are obligated to pay from what you choose to pay.
Let's go back to that commercial kitchen analogy for a second. Your fixed expenses, the rent on the building, the leasing cost for the ovens, the insurance for the staff, that is the cost of simply keeping the doors open.
You pay that no matter what.
Right. You can't easily negotiate your rent down on a random Tuesday. But the variable expenses, those are the ingredients you choose to buy every week. You have constant daily control over them.
Which is incredibly empowering once you realize it.
Yeah, because you can choose to design a cheap, highly profitable menu, or you can buy truffles and saffron and run a luxury menu that just eats up all your cash. That is where your daily control lives.
The locus of control is the perfect way to look at it. Fixed expenses are external obligations. Variable expenses are behavioral choices.
Okay, I hear you, but I have to push back on this sorting logic just a bit.
Sure, go ahead.
The materials we're reviewing explicitly list groceries alongside entertainment in that variable behavioral category.
They do.
Telling someone who is struggling to pay rent that their food budget is just an adjustable choice, like a streaming subscription, it feels a bit disconnected from reality.
I can see how it sounds that way.
I mean, groceries are a biological necessity. You have to eat to survive. How does this methodology justify lumping human sustenance in with movie tickets?
It is a very common point of friction when people start this process. But if we look at the underlying mechanism, the logic actually holds up.
Okay, sell me on it.
It is crucial to separate the biological necessity of eating from the behavioral choices surrounding food consumption. The act of eating is a non-negotiable fixed need, absolutely.
Right.
But how much you spend to fulfill that need is highly flexible. It fluctuates based entirely on your behavior.
So it's the variance in the execution, not the need itself.
Precisely. You can fulfill the biological necessity of eating for $200 a month with bulk rice, dried beans, and frozen vegetables. Or you can fulfill that exact same biological necessity for $800 a month with premium cuts of meat, organic out-of-season produce, and artisanal snacks.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense when you frame it like that.
Right. The cost variance between survival and luxury is massive.
Yeah.
Groceries are grouped with entertainment because both represent areas where you have immediate monthly behavioral control over the outflow of your cash. Identifying these variable costs is critical because this is where you, the listener, will find your leverage.
Leverage. That distinction changes the whole perspective. The kitchen wrench is fixed, but the ingredients, even the ones you absolutely need to keep the restaurant running, can be adjusted based on the financial weather. Okay, so we have triaged the raw data. We have it neatly organized into fixed obligations and variable behavioral choices. We've separated the rent from the ingredients. The natural next step from the source material is figuring out if you actually have enough customers walking through the door to pay for both.
Right, it's time to run the numbers.
That brings us to the core equation.
The ultimate diagnostic tool.
Now, we all know the basic math here. You take your total income and you subtract your total expenses. It's literally middle school arithmetic.
It couldn't be simpler on paper.
Right. And the resulting number is your budget balance. But here's where it gets really interesting, because the fascinating part isn't the formula itself. The fascinating part is why so many of us are utterly terrified to actually run those numbers, and what happens the moment you are forced to confront the result.
The fear of the unknown is often worse than the reality.
Yeah, but this single calculation is the hinge upon which your entire financial freedom rests.
It really is, because it forces you out of ambiguity. When you subtract those expenses from your income, all the guesswork vanishes, leaving you with one of two stark realities.
The moment of truth.
Yeah, if the balance is positive, meaning your income actually exceeds your fixed and variable expenses, you're in a state of growth. You have surplus capital that can be deployed strategically towards savings or investments. You have breathing room.
But if you run that basic math and the number is negative?
If it is negative, it signals an immediate critical need for intervention. A negative budget balance is not just a math error. It means you are actively bleeding money every single month.
Which means you're going into debt just to survive.
Yes. You are forced to accumulate debt simply to maintain your baseline existence. It's an unsustainable trajectory. This raises an important question for you to consider as you listen. If you sat down and ran this simple equation tonight, what would your budget balance reveal?
That's a heavy question.
It is. Are you quietly operating in a surplus, or are you masking a monthly deficit with credit cards?
It's a very uncomfortable question, but it's the whole reason we do the exercise. Because the budget balance isn't just a verdict on your past behavior. It is a call to action for your future.
It's the starting point.
Yeah, if that number is tight, or if you realize you are actively bleeding money, the roadmap doesn't just leave you panicking in the dark. It tells you exactly where to apply the tourniquet.
And that tourniquet is applied directly to those variable expenses we just unpacked.
Right. When the math doesn't work, the strategy dictates that you immediately target discretionary spending within those variable costs. This is the lever you pull to stop the bleeding.
The only lever you can pull quickly, really.
True. The tactics mentioned in the guide involve making targeted cuts, dining out less frequently, canceling unused subscriptions, pausing the impulse buys.
Which requires an incredibly honest appraisal of your daily habits and their actual return on investment for your happiness.
Let me play devil's advocate here, though, because the moment we start talking about cutting discretionary spending, people's defenses immediately go up.
Of course they do.
They hear the word deprivation. So what does this actually look like in practice? Am I supposed to cancel all joy, cut my streaming services, never eat at a restaurant again, and just sit in my living room staring at a blank wall until I am financially stable?
I mean, that sounds miserable.
Right, because a life devoid of all pleasure isn't a roadmap I want to follow.
That reaction is entirely natural, but it is a fundamental misunderstanding of the strategy. A roadmap based entirely on monastic deprivation is doomed to fail because human willpower is finite.
You can only say no so many times.
Exactly. You will eventually snap and binge spend.
Yeah.
The philosophy here is not about eliminating happiness. It is about strategic alignment. The core concept uses terms like adjusting expenses and finding where to cut back.
So it's a dial, not an on-off switch.
Exactly that. It is an evaluation of trade-offs. Let's say your budget balance reveals you are bleeding $100 a month. The goal is simply to find $100 of inefficiency in your variable spending to bring the balance to zero.
Just trimming the fat.
Yeah. Maybe that means keeping the one streaming service you actually watch every day, but canceling the 3 niche ones you only open once a month. Maybe it means keeping your weekly restaurant tradition, but skipping the $12 cocktails when you go out.
So it's not about never having fun again.
Not at all. You aren't punishing yourself. You are simply bringing your outflow into alignment with your inflow so that you stop sinking. You are ensuring that every dollar you spend is actually bringing you value.
I love the idea of evaluating the ROI of a habit, turning the volume down on the things that don't actually move the needle on your happiness so you can afford the things that really do.
It's all about intentionality.
Yeah. And once you make those adjustments, once you fix that budget balance on paper.
Oh, that's actually the easy part, isn't it?
Well, absolutely. The paper is patient.
Right. Running the numbers on a quiet Sunday afternoon with a cup of coffee is an academic exercise. Living it out in the real world on a highly stressful Wednesday when you are exhausted and just want to order expensive takeout, that is the true challenge.
The Wednesday test is real. Which brings us to the final ongoing phase of this roadmap.
The execution. A plan without execution is really just a wish.
A budget is definitely not a set-it-and-forget-it artifact. The strategies we are looking at emphasize that successful financial management requires a long-term commitment. It's about actively monitoring your habits and consistently tracking your spending to ensure your daily behavior actually matches the Sunday afternoon plan you created.
Because your life is dynamic, not static. An emergency expense will pop up, your income might fluctuate, or a stressful week will tempt your habits to revert to their default, comfortable, expensive settings.
It is exactly like setting a destination in a GPS. You can punch in the address and the screen will show you a beautiful, efficient, brightly colored line to get exactly where you want to go.
A perfect line.
Right, the map is perfect. But that map is completely useless if you don't actually keep your hands on the steering wheel, keep your eyes on the road, and track your progress as you drive.
You have to actually drive the car.
Yeah. If you take a wrong turn, the GPS recalculates. If you overspend on groceries 1 week because you hosted a dinner party, you have to track it, acknowledge it, and recalculate your spending in the entertainment category to stay on route for the rest of the month.
That captures the required agility perfectly. You don't abandon the entire trip just because you took a detour. You just adjust. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, we see the profound psychological shift that happens when you commit to this level of tracking.
It really changes how you view your money.
It does. Because the ultimate goal of this constant monitoring isn't just to break even every month. The goal is to direct your surplus funds toward significant life-changing objectives. The methodology explicitly points toward milestones like saving for a vacation or aggressive debt reduction.
That is the payoff for all the tracking. That is the leverage we were talking about earlier.
It is. When you realize that tracking your spending isn't a mechanism for restricting yourself, but rather a mechanism for ensuring you actually have the capital to pay off that crushing credit card debt or to finally book that flight you've been dreaming of, the entire narrative flips.
It's not restrictive anymore.
No, the tracking itself becomes the very vehicle of your liberation. It stops being about what you can't do and starts being about what you are actively building.
It really is a complete perspective shift from anxiety to agency. When you are living paycheck to paycheck, looking at your bank account with dread, every single purchase feels fraught with guilt.
Because you don't know the impact.
Exactly. You buy a coffee and you wonder if it's going to bounce a check next week. But when you've built this roadmap and you know your balance is positive, every purchase is permitted by the plan.
You've already given yourself permission.
Yeah. You buy the coffee knowing the dollars are already allocated. You book the vacation knowing the cash is sitting right there waiting for it. You transition entirely from a reactive posture of fear to a proactive posture of permission.
You are no longer wondering where your money went. You are telling it where to go.
Such a powerful difference. So let's take a step back and recap the terrain we just mapped out for you today.
Sounds good.
We started by confronting the exhausting cognitive load of financial instability. To escape that treadmill, we first had to pull the unvarnished data, every single dollar in and every single dollar out. No estimating, no mental accounting allowed.
Just the raw facts.
Then we triaged that massive pile of information, separating our fixed external obligations, the rent on our commercial kitchen, from our variable behavioral choices, the ingredients we choose to buy.
From there, we forced ourselves out of ambiguity by calculating the budget balance, subtracting total expenses from total income to see if we were growing or bleeding.
The moment of truth. And if that balance was negative, we didn't panic and embrace a monastic life of deprivation. We made strategic, targeted cuts to our discretionary spending. We just turned the volume down on the inefficiencies.
Yeah.
Finally, we committed to the long game. We keep our hands on the steering wheel, we track our spending dynamically, and we drive those extra funds toward real, tangible goals that buy our freedom.
It is a profoundly empowering process. But before we finish, there's something deeply important to consider about the realities of human nature.
Okay, what's that?
As we've seen today, the actual mathematics of budgeting are incredibly simple. It's just addition and subtraction. The real friction, the true challenge of the long-term commitment we've been discussing, lies entirely in our behavioral psychology.
It is a behavioral challenge disguised as a math problem.
Exactly. We know that human willpower is a rapidly depleting resource. You simply cannot rely on sheer discipline to manually track every purchase for the rest of your life.
You'll just burn out.
Right. So I want to leave you with this thought to ponder as you look at your own finances. How can you design your daily physical and digital environment so that monitoring your habits and tracking your spending becomes completely frictionless?
Oh, that's a great question.
Can you automate your savings? Can you use tools that automatically categorize your variable spending? How can you set up your ecosystem so that following your new roadmap feels less like a daily exercise in willpower and more like an automatic, effortless default?
That really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? Because the moment tracking becomes a frictionless habit rather than a daily chore, that paycheck-to-paycheck exhaustion finally starts to fade into the rearview mirror. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. The tools are laid out in front of you, the psychology is clear, and the roadmap is waiting. We encourage you to pull those statements, face the numbers without fear, and take the wheel of your financial future today.